Let's hit the high points.
Well, they're all low points because
that's fine.
Right.
Most news is the news at 5:30 by any of the networks. It's all low points. It's the nature of news. So just go ahead and let's do it.
Okay, so to do this, I have to just explain that the prophecies are not given in a chronological order for the reason they explain that if we knew exactly what was coming when, we would simply try to alter the event.
Isn't that the idea?
Yes, but what they're trying to get us to do is to see the big picture and to make some very profound changes in our individual and collective behavior and consciousness.
All right, having said all that, lay it on us. I want to hear it.
All right, so in order to do it, I have to read it from some of this document or try to paraphrase it. So I'm going to jump here to something in the middle of a page where it says, "And it will be that the fanatics of Islam will rise up against the countries of Europe, and all will shake and quiver." This is from 1987. "Everything in the West will be destroyed. England will be conquered and thrown down to the lowest level of misery. And the fanatics and warriors of Islam will retain their power for a long time. However, not only Europe will be affected, but ultimately all the countries and peoples of the earth, as the great horror expands to a war that will encompass the entire world. After the turn of the millennium, the papacy will exist only a short period. Pope John Paul II is the third from last in this position. After him, only one additional pope will follow. Then a Pontifex Maximus follows, who will be known as Petrus Romanus. I think other people have said this too. Under his religious rule, the end of the Catholic Church will come, and a total collapse becomes inevitable." So this is, we'll stop here on this segment. As far back as 1980 or 81, they told Meier that during the latter part of the 20th century and going into the 21st century, fundamentalist sects and religious cults of all sorts would start to arise, and there'd be a lot of pain and suffering over it. And they did point out the Islamic fundamentalists as one of the major ones. And they also said at that time, and they repeat it later, that France will have an uprising from within that could overthrow France to a high degree. Remember, they're saying here that Islam is going to, roar through Europe.
This is serious stuff, all right.
This is serious. Now, the reason I want to stop here is to say, look, I want to remind us at every moment, this is still, to some degree, alterable, because there's a counterbalance body of information where they have said, look, this isn't about pacifism. This isn't about you simply let things happen to you, because self-defense is it's not only a right, it's a responsibility. Mm-hmm. But from their perspective, the way to deal with these things is very different than the way we're dealing with it. So I want to read more into it and then talk about that, because this is going to bother you and a lot of other people. I'm going to jump back and forth here. So here's where it gets unpleasant. The USA will set out against the eastern countries ahead of all other financial states, and simultaneously she will have to defend herself against the eastern intruders. In all, America will play the most decisive role when, in the guise to strive for peace and to fight against terrorism, she will invade many countries of the earth, bomb and destroy everything, and bring thousandfold death to the populations. The military politics, of the USA will likewise know no limits, as neither will their economical and other political institutions, which will be focused on building and operating a world police force, as it is the case already for a long time. Now, before people start, listen, I'm reading somebody else's words here, but they'll be mad at me. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Let me explain how I look at this. We in this country are an extended family, as every country could consider itself, and let alone humanity. If in my own personal family I find out, somebody brings me news that some cousin or Uncle Joe or Aunt Nellie is doing something that's really wrong or immoral, dangerous or deadly, do I turn around and attack the messenger, or do I go about trying to find out whether it is so or not so?
Well, a lot of people attack the messenger, Michael.
Yes. So my position, what I've kind of learned the hard way, is I don't care what I like and what I don't like. I still may have them. But I want to find out what is so and what is true, because then I can do something about it. If we continue, this is my editorial, if we continue to to be focused on sticking our index fingers in the air, whirling them around, going, we're number one, and anybody that objects to anything is unpatriotic, we are in for an awful lot of trouble. No one would run a company that way, let alone a family and let alone a country. So let me go on where they're continuing to slam at us. And by the way, they are equal opportunity offenders. They have something bad to say about almost everybody. But I'm more concerned right now with what they're saying here, because this affects potentially you and me.
Of course.
True.
Of course.
They are talking here, and it says, and this will point towards the possibility that a third world war could develop from it if human beings as a whole will not finally reflect upon reason and become reasonable and undertake the necessary steps against the insane machinations of their governments and military powers, as well as their secret services, and call a halt to the power of the irresponsible who have forsaken their responsibility in all areas. If this does not happen, many small and great nations will lose their independence and their cultural identity and will be beaten down because the USA will gain predominance over them with evil force and bring them down under her rule. At first, many countries will howl with the wolves of the U.S., partially due to fear of American aggressions and sanctions, as this will be the case with many irresponsible in Switzerland and Germany, but also of other countries.
You realize this sounds very anti-American.
Yes, it does. As I say, they're equal opportunity defenders, but I'm focusing on this at the risk of people being upset because
that's all right. I don't want you to.
I ain't backing off of it because this is what's in there.
No, I don't want you to back off it.
Okay.
I'm just making note of how it does sound.
Absolutely so. And Meier has survived 19 documented assassination attempts. It's not because he's talking to the benevolent Space Brothers. These people have said, we tell things as we see them and as we know them. We are not interested in political speech, in diplomatic speech, and in flowery words because it only delays the truth, and that makes things worse. We're giving you these warnings. You've asked for help from above in all of your unique ways. Here it is, but you have to help yourselves. We will tell you what we see. You can disregard it if you wish. You can work with it. You can change it, but we can't. So they go on to say, in parts, others will join in because they will be forced somehow to do so or will be misled by irresponsible promoters of American propaganda.
All right, well, we're already at war with Islamic fundamentalism.
Yeah.
No question about that. But what you're suggesting there is that it becomes a full-fledged war, essentially, with Islamic countries, with Islam.
Well, no. Not only, remember in here they say America is going to beat down many small and great nations will lose their independence and cultural identity. They're actually saying we're going to extend this war. Now, I had this document in my hands when I was in New York like 2 years ago, in 2002, before the U.S. had launched the attack, I think even on Afghanistan, right before here it was. They're talking about...
Well, I don't think any American right now would be shocked at the possibility of a wider war with Islam and some Islamic countries. It's in the offing.
Of course, but here's where things are a little... let me read some of this. This is where it takes other flavors. Finally, many Asian, African, and European states will rise up against the American hegemony once they recognize that the USA is only taking advantage of them for purposes of war, conquest, and exploitation. Well, this is not politically correct, is it? In this way, many countries will become puppet states of America before reason and realization will emerge in the responsible ones of governments and in many of the population, resulting in a turning away from the USA. However, the Great War will hardly be avoidable because the human beings of Earth will probably not accept the directions towards the better. Therewith, towards true love and freedom and peace, and striving instead only towards wealth and pleasures and riches and for all manner of material values and vices and unrestricted power. Sounds a bit moralistic, but hey, I'm not going to overly comment. This is what they're talking about. In this same document, as I say, this is many pages long. In this document and in the original version where they didn't talk about the World Trade Center in this part, they mentioned, for instance, they said in the future there's a danger of India and Pakistan entering into a nuclear conflict with each other if they're misled into this action. Now, back in the 80s, they didn't even have nuclear weapons. But in October of 2003, we may all remember...
Well, right now, though, Michael, the actions that I see that we have taken